morning, everyone. I'm Lawrence Marks. I'm the Chief Administrative Judge, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 2019 State of our Judiciary. This is Chief Judge DiFiore's third State of the Judiciary address. The first was held just down the road here at the Bronx Hall of Justice. And last year we returned to tradition at Court of Appeals Hall in Albany. But this year we're back in the Bronx in this beautiful venue. And I'm more of a Brooklyn guy, but I'm willing to concede that the Bronx is one of our state's great counties. So we're back here this year, and there'll be more discussion about that a little later. But first, if you'll please stand, we will have the presentation of the colors by the New York State Court's ceremonial unit. We now welcome a group of students to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. They are Caden and Mason Santiago, sons of Senior Court Clerk Jessica Santiago, Caitlin Gomez, daughter of Maribel Chaparro, Principal Secretary to the Administrative Judge, Carly Paez, daughter of Senior Court Clerk Lachelle Glaspie, and Gabriela Rodriguez, daughter of Court Officer Gabe Rodriguez. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Court Officer Jaleesa Copeland from New York County Supreme Court will now sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
So I would ask you to remain standing because we are very pleased to have with us the Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, Senior Pastor of Grace Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, who will offer the invocation.
I welcome this opportunity to share in this important occasion and to call our attention to a higher judge and a higher bench, to a nobler spirituality that we might see and mirror our best selves. Having said that, let us pray. Almighty God, our mother and our father, we thank you for this opportunity to celebrate the promise of this place and of this space. We celebrate this occasion as we celebrate our pursuit for justice and equality. We thank you for the court system and the courts of the Empire State, and for this servant leader, the Honorable Janet DiFiore. We thank you for her leadership as she seeks to make of our courts servant courts, servants of the people, service of justice, servants of truth and righteousness. We pray now that you would make the hands of those who administer justice throughout every corner of this state sensitive and men and women of integrity, that who they are will be who they demonstrate themselves to be in the work of their hands. Now help us to rise to our best selves, to mirror your righteousness, your truth, and your justice, and cause us to leave here devoted to the high standards of what this country can be. May our judicial system continue to be an instrument of peace, of truth, of righteousness, and grace. And bless this day, this marvelous day. Help us to maximize its promise and its potential. Your blessings be upon us all. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. So I would like to start out by recognizing several current and former members of the Judiciary, beginning first with the Associate Judges of the Court of Appeals, and this is in order of seniority. Judge Jenny Rivera, Judge Leslie Stein, Judge Eugene Fahey, Judge Michael Garcia. This is a little like watching a ping pong match. Judge Rowan Wilson. And Judge Paul Feynman. Next are the presiding justices of the Appellate Division, Justice Rolando Acosta of the First Department, and Justice Alan Schenkman of the Second Department. And unfortunately, Justice Gary and Justice Whalen could not be here today for personal reasons. With us today is former Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, Jonathan Lippman, and former Associate Judge of the Court of Appeals, Carmen Saparik. And we're pleased to have three former presiding justices of the Appellate Division here this morning: Betty Weinberg-Ellerin, Randall Eng, and Karen Peters. Our three Deputy Chief Administrative Judges are here today: Michael Kokoma, who's the Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for courts outside of New York City; George Silver, who's Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York City courts; and Judge Edwina Mendelson, who's Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for Justice Initiatives. I'd also like to recognize Judge Juanita Bing-Newton, Dean of our Judicial Institute. Our administrative and supervising judges from across the state are here, as are a significant number of appellate and trial judges. And from the federal courts, we are joined by Chief Judge Colleen McMahon of the Southern District of New York. From the state executive branch, we are so pleased to have with us the new Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James. Congratulations, Attorney General James. And also we had the Solicitor General of the state of New York, Barbara Underwood. And the Acting Commissioner of the State Division of Criminal Justice Services, Michael Green. And from the state legislature, we have Jeffrey Dinowitz, who represents an assembly district here in the Bronx and is also chair of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. And speaking of the Bronx, a special thanks to Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., we share this building with the Borough President, and Borough President Diaz, we appreciate the generous assistance of your office in organizing this event. Thank you. A number of our state's district attorneys are present today. Darcel Clark from Bronx County. Cyrus Vance from New York County. Michael McMahon, Richmond County. Madeline Singas, Nassau County. David Hoovler from Orange County. Timothy Sini, Suffolk County. Anthony Jordan, Washington County. And Anthony Scarpino, Westchester County. And the Director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, Elizabeth Glazer, is here. The President of the New York State Bar Association, Michael Miller, is with us this morning. as is the President-elect of the State Bar, Henry Greenberg. Also here is the President of the New York City Bar Association, Roger Maldonado. And the President of the Bronx County Bar Association, Tina Wells, is here. As are representatives of other bar associations from across the city and state. And I apologize, but I neglected to recognize Eric Gonzalez, District Attorney, Kings County. Also with us are Dean Michael Simons from St. John's Law School and Dean Mary Lou Billick from CUNY Law School. And finally, I'd like to welcome several groups of students who are here with us today. From the 2018 Thurgood Marshall Mock Trial Competition, which is led by Judge Elizabeth Taylor of Bronx Supreme Court, we have the winning 8th grade team from Epiphany School in Manhattan, and we have the winning 7th grade team from the Preparatory Academy at PS 71 in the Bronx. Thank you for being with us today. And from Mount St. Michael Academy in the Bronx, we have a group of students from the mock trial program, as well as the government and criminal justice classes. We also have the chorus from Mount St. Michael Academy, who will be singing for us later in the program. Mount St. Michael students, please stand with your principals and teachers. Thank you. It is now my privilege to introduce our Chief Judge, Janet DiFiore. As we all know, when you're Chief Judge, you have two jobs. One is Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, with the very same judicial responsibilities and workload as the other judges of the court. And the other job is Chief Judge of the State of New York, with the relatively simple task of overseeing the massive and complex organization that is the unified court system. I can tell you, and I know this firsthand, that the Chief Judge pours her heart and soul into both of those critically important and critically challenging roles. And as everyone knows, but I'll say it anyway, she is doing an exceptional job. Although there is so much more work to do, the New York courts today are operating more efficiently, more effectively, and more productively. Thanks to the Chief Judge's leadership, we all have a lot to be proud of. So please join me in welcoming Chief Judge DiFiore as she speaks to us on the state of the judiciary.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning and welcome to this year's State of Our Judiciary. Thank you all for being here. Every day in over 300 courthouses throughout the state, our trial and appellate judges and court staff are working diligently to deliver fair and timely justice while searching for new ways to speed the litigation process, eliminate delays and backlog in our criminal, our family, and our civil courts, and promote excellence in judicial decision-making and the quality of the justice services we provide to the public. I want to publicly express my gratitude and appreciation to each and every one of our judges, court staff, and court officers for the dedication and professionalism with which they handle the more than 3 million matters that are filed in our trial and appellate courts each year. And I am personally grateful to my Court of Appeals colleagues, Jenny Rivera, Leslie Stein, Eugene Fahey, Michael Garcia, Rowan Wilson, and Paul Feynman for their support and contributions to the administration of justice. Thank you. For better or for worse, our court dockets mirror the state of our society, reflecting an incredible array of complex and difficult issues with profound consequences for not only the parties in a given litigation, but for the broader well-being of our communities. Whether someone goes to jail for committing a crime, a family is evicted from its home, which parent gets custody of the children, can a person collect damages after suffering a personal injury or assert shareholder rights in a corporation? The list goes on and on and on. So thanks to the hard work and competence of our judges and staff who strive to fairly and efficiently adjudicate these millions of cases every year, I am pleased to report to you that the state of our judiciary is growing stronger with each passing day. Now, you may recall that 2 years ago, in a departure from tradition, I delivered the first State of Our Judiciary address here in Bronx County, instead of at Court of Appeals Hall in Albany. Why did we do that? Because I wanted to make a point. Our Bronx courts were not keeping pace with expectations and had become, and I did indeed use some very direct language, the Bronx courts had become an epicenter for many of the worst delays and backlogs plaguing our justice system. But we made a commitment to the people of Bronx County that day, and that commitment was that we would work tirelessly to fix what was broken and to give our judges and their staff the support they needed to get things right in the Bronx courts. We are so pleased to be back here in the Bronx today to report to you on the significant progress that our judges and their staff have made to improve the delivery of justice to the residents, the litigants, and the lawyers in this county and all around the state. And what more impressive setting in which to lay our record bare and account to the people we serve than the central hall of this iconic, beautiful, iconic courthouse, one of the largest and busiest in the state, home not only to Borough Hall, but to the Bronx County Supreme Court civil term and the Bronx County branch of the New York City Civil Court. Just 3 years ago, when I began my term as Chief Judge by announcing that we were undertaking a system-wide campaign to examine our processes with the goal of achieving greater efficiency in operations and enhancing the quality of judicial decision-making, all around the state, our judges and staff declared they were all in. Perhaps at the time there were a few naysayers and doubting Thomases, but there were few and far between. But our judges, our court personnel, and our court officers, under the leadership of an excellent team of court managers, have performed beyond our expectations, and that is clearly evidenced by the numbers. I'll start today's report with our high-volume New York City Criminal Court, where we have prioritized the efficient adjudication of misdemeanor cases. 3 years ago, some were convinced that we could not and we would not change the landscape, but our judges and staff have proven them wrong and have paved the way to impressive progress citywide, and especially here in the Bronx, where we have reduced the number of misdemeanor cases pending for more than a year by 84%, 2,000 cases. Elsewhere in the city, the oldest misdemeanor cases have been slashed by 85% in Manhattan, 72% in Staten Island, by 43% in Brooklyn, and 27% in Queens. That is a remarkable turnaround, and the credit goes first and foremost to our criminal court judges and their staff for putting in the hard work, and of course to our leadership, our citywide administrative judge, Tomiko Amaker, and our hard-charging supervising judges. They have been hands-on leaders willing to make tough but necessary changes while working collaboratively with our indispensable partners, the district attorneys and the defense bar, to gain their support and cooperation as we move toward a more proactive case management culture, one that limits adjournments and unproductive appearances and expands our trial capacity by clearing our parts and freeing up our judges to try cases. Outside the city, we've made very good progress as well, especially in our district courts on Long Island, where misdemeanor cases over standards and goals have been reduced by 53% since the start of the Excellence Initiative. Upstate, our city courts have made great improvement, with misdemeanors pending over standards and goals down by 54%, highlighted by decreases of 74% in the 8th Judicial District, 73% in both the 4th and 6th JDs, and 65% in the 9th. Thank you to our administrative judges in those districts, Paula Ferraledo, Vito Caruso, Molly Fitzgerald, and Kathy Davidson, and of course, to Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Michael Kokoma for his strong and steady leadership. To be candid, and with full disclosure of all contributing factors, we have surely benefited from the recent decline in misdemeanor filings, especially in New York City. And that has given us the breathing room we needed to make important operational changes and focus on resolving those oldest cases. But the bottom line is that the progress we have made is due to the heightened focus of our judges and our staff, and the commitment and the sense of urgency that comes from knowing what's at stake. Delays in adjudicating misdemeanor cases cause real harm in people's lives. Defendants who are frustratingly forced to return to court again and again, experiencing non-productive appearances and wasteful adjournments, find themselves losing pay, struggling with childcare, and facing family disruption and anxiety. All consequences we have the power and the responsibility to minimize. Here in the Bronx, I want to thank Supervising Judge George Grasso, District Attorney Darcel Clark, and the Bronx Bar. And throughout the city, Supervising Judges Kevin McGrath, Mike Yavinsky, and Michelle Johnson, Chief Clerk Justin Barry, and District Attorneys Richard Brown, Cyrus Vance, Eric Gonzalez, and Michael McMahon, and of course, the entire defense bar citywide. The New York City Criminal Court is striving to become a model of efficiency, and all stakeholders are pulling in the same direction to achieve our shared vision of just dispositions with all due speed. Regarding our felony cases, timeliness is an important component of our work leading the way to a more just and efficient criminal justice system. Again, we know the harm that is caused when cases linger, and there is a lack of urgency in our courts. Defendants, presumed innocent under the law, languish in jail without a trial or final disposition. Prosecutors find themselves unable to properly do their jobs as witnesses become unavailable, memories fade, and evidence grows stale. And crime victims and their families as well, people who are dragged into the criminal justice system unwillingly, end up feeling re-victimized as they are forced to wait and sometimes wait for justice to be done. Unacceptable on every level. That said, outside New York City, we have a lot to be proud of. The number of felony cases that were pending over our 6-month standards and goals benchmark has been cut statewide by 61%, highlighted by reductions of 90% in the 9th Judicial District, 82% in the 7th, and 75% in Suffolk County. Again, the judges and staff in those districts, led by Kathy Davidson, Craig Doran, and Randy Hinrichs, are hyper-focused on proactively managing their caseloads, finding ways to move these cases with careful, thoughtful, and deliberate speed, and with the cooperation and commitment of the local district attorneys and defense bar who have recognized and responded to the imperative. In New York City, we've made progress, but we know that we must do better. Here in the Bronx, our Supreme Court criminal term, led by Administrative Judge Robert Torres, has been a bright spot, reducing the number of felonies 1 year and older by 46% since the start of the Excellence Initiative. Institutional impediments have been identified and operational changes have been made, including strategically reassigning judges well-suited to key parts, securing the DA's commitment to assign assistants to the parts who have immediate authority to resolve cases, and better communication and collaboration with our city partners in the Department of Corrections. That's been established in order to facilitate the efficient production of incarcerated defendants in our courtrooms. In Queens, the number of felony cases over 2 years old has declined by 76% since the start of the Excellence Initiative. And this effort is led from the top by Administrative Judge Joe Zayas, with the cooperation of District Attorney Richard Brown and, of course, the dedicated lawyers who provide the defense services. But we do admittedly still have a long way to go, and I am reminded of that reality each week when I review our weekly statistics. And I know that the public is reminded of that reality every time a news story is published, revealing the circumstances of yet another defendant on trial in a case that has been pending for 3 or 4 years, sometimes even longer, while housed on Rikers Island or in other pretrial detention facilities. Now, I have a fair amount of experience in the criminal justice system, and I understand well that there are legitimate factors that can cause delay. But with that said, it is wholly unacceptable to allow our cases to linger and drag on and on and on. It is our responsibility to manage and lead, to manage our litigation and lead in our courtrooms. And that is why on January 2nd, here in the Bronx, we launched the first installment of our START program, the Special Term Additional Resources Trial Team, targeting the 100 older cases involving jailed defendants, all of whom had been incarcerated pre-trial for at least 2 years in city jails. I'll repeat that. Incarcerated pre-trial for at least 2 years in city jails, with some as long as 4 or 5 years. We selected 4 outstanding trial judges known for their ability to move cases and be part of this team. Judge Barry Warhit, the supervising judge of the criminal courts for the 9th Judicial District, has led our START team, supported by Judges Fernando Camacho, John Carter, and James McCarty. The START team has done an excellent job. In just 8 short weeks, all 100, some of them pending for 3 or 4 years, have been finally resolved. And the START team has expanded its original mission, taking on an additional caseload of older felony cases and resolving a total of 126 cases as of today. These judges are determined to use their authority, experience, and skill, supported by their highly developed sense of justice and fair play, to ensure that excuses and unnecessary delays no longer prevent resolution of cases that can and should be finalized by negotiated plea or moved to immediate trial. The program has been so successful that we are assembling the second iteration of our START team and will continue to tackle the oldest felony cases pending on our city dockets. Achieving excellence requires constant and sometimes momentarily uncomfortable self-examination. And when we do find ourselves falling short of expectations, we don't look back in an effort to deflect or make excuses or assess blame. Rather, we take ownership of our shortcomings, identify the obstacles, and take corrective measures, be that a realignment of our human resources or a change in our modus operandi. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say, and the 4 START judges, overseen by Judge Torres and supported by great staff, including our superstar clerk in that part, Jessica Negron, along with our Bronx trial judges, District Attorney Clark, and the defense bar, have certainly done an excellent job to achieve truly excellent results. We are pleased to be doing our part to reduce the population on Rikers Island by creating an efficient, responsible court process that moves cases with all deliberate speed and avoids unnecessarily prolonged pretrial detention. On the civil side of our house, over 1.3 million cases of every variety were filed in the Supreme Court last year. And of course, timely resolution of our civil matters pending in our courts is as important and real as the imperative we feel on the criminal side. Litigants who bring their disputes to our courts often do so as a last resort when all else has failed for them. They want closure and they want a fair resolution so that they can move forward with their lives and in their businesses. They don't expect, nor do they deserve, protracted delays, unnecessary expense, uncertainty, or to be frustrated by inefficiencies produced or tolerated by our court system. When that happens, not only is it wrong and unjust for the individual, but when that happens, the public loses trust and confidence in our legal system, something we cannot afford to happen, particularly in this time when the rule of law and our democratic institutions are under attack on so many fronts. We in the judicial branch of government know that the prompt and fair adjudication of every matter that comes before us is what fosters public confidence in our justice system and in the rule of law, the bedrock of our democratic society. And so in every corner of the state, under the banner of our Excellence Initiative, we've been working to manage our civil dockets more proactively and more efficiently, making the operational, technological, and management changes we need to frame a smarter system within which our judges and staff can be more productive and effective. We are operating more transparently, experimenting with new approaches, and we are assigning both our judicial and non-judicial resources more flexibly and creatively, maximizing the use of our talent within the limitations of our constitutional structure, and more on that in a moment. And we are indeed starting to see results. Outside New York City, the percentage of our pending cases that are over standards and goals has been cut almost in half since the start of the Excellence Initiative, highlighted by reductions of 71% in the 3rd Judicial District, led by Tom Breslin, and 55% in the 5th Judicial District, led by Judge Jim Tormey. In New York City, and again here in the Bronx, the civil term of Supreme Court is making impressive progress. Last year alone, jury trials in this county were up by 42%, and the number of days on trial was up by 37%. Notable increases that actually go against the national trend of the disappearing jury trial. It used to be said that you couldn't get a trial in Bronx County. Now, cases are being called in the conference part and sent out for immediate trial. For the 2nd year in a row, the court decided over 5,000 more motions than were filed, and late decided motions were down by 37% in 2018. 2 critical steps toward cutting backlog and achieving prompt dispositions. Because one thing we know for sure, you can't move cases unless you decide the motions. Last year alone, the number of cases on the calendar awaiting trial in the Bronx was reduced by 24%. Again, the credit rightly belongs first and foremost to our Bronx judges and court staff for rededicating their effort and upping their game. And we thank them, and we thank George Silver, our Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York City Courts, who spent the last year doing double duty as both the Acting Administrative Judge of Bronx Supreme Civil and the DCAJ. Judge Silver's relentless focus on improving court operations and case management, combined with his experience, energy, and enthusiasm, have been both spectacular and contagious. On January 1st, he handed the reins over to Judge Doris Gonzalez, our new administrative judge of Bronx Supreme Civil, a judge who we have every confidence will build on the advances that have been made over the past year to provide timely and affordable justice to the residents of Bronx County. Good luck to you, Judge. Now, it is no secret that my heart belongs to the family court. And given the opportunity, I might even trade my day job for a seat back on that bench. I'm dreaming, I'll move on. But certainly, this report on the court system's progress would not be complete without addressing the important foundational issues: foster care, child abuse and neglect, custody, visitation and support, juvenile delinquency, domestic violence, which are all heard in this court, and which account for the more than 600,000 filings we received last year. That's nearly a fifth of our overall docket. I don't think I need to remind this audience about the powerful impact that the work done in family court has on families, or the serious damage done to children when justice in this court is delayed. This is truly a complicated court. It is a court in which our judges and staff constantly struggle to balance best interests, safety, and timeliness. And given that outsized responsibility, our judges and court staff have performed admirably, demonstrating a sustained dedication and devotion to the children and families who need their assistance. Outside New York City, the work of family court is timely. The percentage of cases over standards and goals is holding steady at only 4%. In New York City, including here in the Bronx, our judges and staff have managed to hold their own despite a surge in neglect and abuse filings, among the most difficult and complex cases handled in family court. Administrative Judge Janet Ruiz and the judges and staff of the New York City Family Court have adopted many innovations to improve efficiency and services. Appointment Express, a program that now allows litigants to make online appointments to meet with a clerk at a designated time to file their court petitions, eliminating hours wasted standing in a hallway. Our child support cases involving custodial parents on public assistance are now being heard throughout all 5 of the boroughs in New York City, no longer limiting access in these matters to New York County. Court-sponsored mediation, now being offered in the evenings for custody and visitation matters. And our Strong Starts program, a wonderful program which provides clinical services to the youngest children in abuse and neglect cases, has been expanded to now include Staten Island. It is often hard to define what makes a disposition in family court a positive outcome. And while I know that our judges and staff strive every day to bring together the many moving parts necessary to achieve outcomes that improve the well-being of children and families, make no mistake, the timeliness with which we resolve these cases and achieve finality are important factors in that calculation. So congratulations to our family court doing a most admirable job. How about a round of applause for the family court? Now, we do talk a lot about the numbers, and we do pore over and pay studious attention to the numbers. And our Chief Administrative Judge, Larry Marks, does an extraordinary job of using that statistical data to command and guide improvement of our statewide operations. But hear this, our work and our progress under the banner of the Excellence Initiative is not and has never been about a blind devotion to the numbers. I repeat, this is not about a blind or rigid devotion to the numbers. The Excellence Initiative is about so much more. It is a sophisticated, nuanced, modern, and muscular approach to achieving justice for the benefit of the people we are privileged to serve. It's not a top-down approach, and it's not about any 1, 3, or 10 individuals. This is about every one of us and the interconnected role we each have to play. And we are, all of us, own a piece of the success we have already achieved and can be proud of the many ways in which our operations, and as a most important consequence, our judicial decision-making has been improving. Our efforts are not fleeting, they are continuing, they are expanding, they are being institutionalized, and they are being recalibrated every single day. Each of us made a promise to the people of the state of New York, and we are all bound together in fulfilling that promise. And while it is indeed hard work, as I travel throughout the state, I sense in you the same satisfaction and pride I feel in what we've already accomplished together. And I am so grateful for your support as we jointly search for excellence. So thank you all. Now, notwithstanding our all-consuming focus on improving our underlying court operations, we have also managed at the same time to keep our eye on emerging issues and forward-looking initiatives. We are all painfully aware that the country is in the midst of a devastating epidemic of opioid dependency. Over 70,000 Americans died from drug overdoses in the year 2017, with 2/3 of those deaths caused by opioids. Last year, I highlighted the opening of the first in the nation opioid treatment intervention court in the city of Buffalo. That court is now the model for how to stabilize and help save the lives of high-risk drug offenders through its use of immediate intervention and referral to evidence-based treatment, close case management and judicial supervision, and deferral of prosecution pending successful completion of treatment. Last year, we began to replicate the model. The Bronx County Criminal Court followed suit, and we began our statewide effort to institutionalize this new approach to better outcomes. In total, we're now operating 11 opioid treatment courts, and we will open 10 more this year. Our goal is to establish an opioid treatment court in every county of New York City and at least one in every judicial district in the state. And as Judge Heitler, our Chief of Policy and Planning, and her staff will tell you, all of these courts share one vital goal: transforming and saving lives. And with the help and support of the Center for Court Innovation, I am confident that we are best positioning ourselves to secure the state and federal funding necessary to expand these updated and enlightened model courts, which by all accounts are making a real difference. New York's long experience and credibility in creating specialized courts, thank you, Judge Littman, have enabled us to quickly develop the national opioid court model. And as a satisfying testament to that work, our policy and operational guidelines, training curricula, and instructional materials are spreading across the country as others seek to replicate what we're doing here in New York. So congratulations and thank you to all those who have been leading our work on this important initiative. The urgent need for criminal justice reform in New York is also out front and it's dominating the public discussion as it should. And for those of us serving in the judicial branch of government, reform pervades our work on every level, from our decision-making to the fairness and accuracy of our processes, to the elimination of delay, to the movement of pretrial detainees off of Rikers Island. We are committed to working with our partners in government and the entire criminal justice community to achieve a more equitable and effective system that balances due process and fairness with accountability and public safety. We look forward to supporting and working with Governor Cuomo, the leadership and members of the state legislature, district attorneys, and the defense bar on common sense reforms especially with regard to our bail laws, criminal discovery, speedy trial, and of course, continuing our work to reduce the possibility that someone could be convicted of a crime that he or she did not commit. Recently, in this regard, the Justice Task Force, which includes all the main players in the criminal justice system, has reached a thoughtful consensus on bail reform. Far too many defendants, presumed innocent under the law, are being detained prior to trial because of their inability to pay the amount of bail set in their cases. This is inequitable, and it is contrary to our long-held belief that pretrial detention should be a carefully limited exception to the norm. After conducting a comprehensive examination of the bail system in New York, as well as jurisdictions across the country, the task force recommends that New York courts operate upon the presumption that defendants facing misdemeanor and certain nonviolent felony charges, the vast majority of our criminal cases, be released either on their own recognizance or with the least restrictive non-monetary conditions necessary to ensure their presence in court. The presumption is rebuttable where there is a significant risk defendant will not return to court, or the court determines there is a credible threat to the safety of an identifiable person or a group of persons. The Justice Task Force also urges that supervised release and robust pretrial services be included in bail reform, with the necessary funding provided for in order to implement the goal of practical alternatives to pretrial detention. I want to thank the co-chairs, Judge Carmen Saparic and Judge Mark Dwyer, Davis Polk and Angela Burgess and her associates, as well as the voting and advisory members of the task force, for once again meaningfully contributing to the development of sound, fair proposals and recommendations for reform. The Justice Task Force has accomplished something truly extraordinary. The members of that group have created a space where true advocates, warriors in their fields, have been able to come together to engage in open, honest, and productive dialogue, and most important, round their edges to achieve consensus on the most important criminal justice issues of the day. It was a true privilege to be an active member of the task force for 7 years, and now as Chief Judge, it is incredibly gratifying to watch them as they work to advance the justice issues of our time. Thank you all for your excellent service. On another vital criminal justice issue, I want to underscore an absolutely unconscionable circumstance. The lawyers appointed by our courts to represent indigent criminal defendants, as well as children and parents in our family courts, have not received an increase in their compensation since the year 2004, when rates were fixed at $75 an hour for felonies and representation of children, and $60 an hour for representation in misdemeanor cases. Meanwhile, the compensation paid to assigned counsel in the federal courts has been adjusted 11 different times since 2004 and is presently fixed at $140 an hour. Failure to adequately compensate these lawyers obviously hurts those individuals in need of representation, but it also impairs our ability to efficiently operate our criminal and family courts. Nearly a third of the lawyers serving on our Attorney for the Child panels have dropped from service since 2014, undeniably a cause of adjournment and delay in family court proceedings throughout the state. And while the state has certainly leaned in and come very far in its commitment to strengthen our criminal indigent defense system with the creation of the State Office of Indigent Legal Services, headed by Bill Leahy, and the increased funding to support county governments and public defenders, we continue to rely on hundreds of private attorneys to provide legal representation for indigent criminal defendants and family court litigants in many areas of the state. Without fair and adequate compensation for these assigned counsel, this vital component of our system is at risk. Today, I transmitted a letter to Governor Cuomo and the legislature urging action to adjust the rate of compensation paid for assigned counsel work in order for us to ensure quality justice in criminal and family court, as well as to preserve and continue the progress we have made to address systemic delays and speed the delivery of justice. Based on their demonstrated commitment to issues of fairness and equal justice, I am confident that the policy-making branches of our state government understand what is at stake and recognize the need for an upward adjustment of New York's assigned counsel rates. And of course, we look forward to providing them with any assistance and expertise they may desire. Now, I might be a fast talker, but I am also a very good listener. And almost as soon as the Excellence Initiative was announced, practitioners, bar associations, judges began reaching out to us with suggestions as to how and what the Excellence Initiative should tackle. One of the most frequent suggestions we heard was that the court system should better incorporate and take advantage of alternative dispute resolution. Here are the simple facts. Mediation and arbitration have a proven track record of settling a high percentage of civil cases and of narrowing the disputed issues, reducing the cost of litigation. After listening, questioning, much discussion, and planning last April, we created an Adr Advisory Committee. We populated the committee with leading judges, practitioners, Adr professionals, and academics who volunteered to serve under the very able leadership of John Kiernan, an experienced litigator and leader of the bar. The committee got to work and now urges the court system to adopt presumptive early mediation as a standard component of our case management process for those cases known to be promising candidates for mediation. We are all in, and we will move toward a system in which most civil cases, including many matrimonial and family cases, will be automatically presumed eligible for early referral to court-sponsored mediation. Through our Office of Adr programs and guided by the committee's expertise, our administrative judges will work hand in hand with local bar associations to expand the number of mediation programs in the New York State courts. At the same time, we will develop statewide rules to guide local program implementation, provide training for judges, attorneys, and neutrals, and we will appoint local Adr coordinators. Our past experience with court-annexed Adr has been positive, with high settlement rates and high user satisfaction levels, including in Manhattan Supreme Court, where a pilot program requiring early mediation for contract disputes under $500,000 achieved a 60% settlement rate. In Erie County, where my former Court of Appeals colleague Gene Piggott, upon his return after his Court of Appeals service to the trial bench, started an early mediation program using court-approved volunteers, achieving a 65% settlement rate in over 1,700 referred civil, tort, and estate matters since the program's inception in 2017. And there are more positive indicators in diverse areas such as permanency for children, matrimonial matters, and the work being done in our community dispute resolution centers operating in each of our 62 counties. It is time to provide litigants and lawyers with a broader range of options to resolve disputes without the high monetary and emotional costs of conventional litigation. We consider this vision of ADR to be an integral part of our Excellence Initiative, and we are excited and we look forward to working with the bar to make this a reality. Because New York is the commercial and financial capital of the world, we have long been committed to providing a world-class forum for resolving complex business disputes, the commercial division of our Supreme Court, where we have been especially successful in adopting new procedures to streamline discovery and reduce litigation costs. Last year, I asked our Advisory Committee on Civil Practice to evaluate the reforms implemented in the commercial division and recommend which of them could and should be adopted more broadly in our civil courts. A range of procedural and discovery reforms were recommended. They were posted for public comment, and the Administrative Board of the courts, which I chair with our 4 presiding justices, is now in the process of reviewing the commentary, and we are scheduled to vote on the proposals this spring. And finally, in recognition of the economic resurgence taking place right here in the Bronx and reflected in the number of commercial cases filed in Bronx Supreme Civil, we will be expanding the commercial division to Bronx County effective April 1st. Last July, we appointed Judge Jeffrey Sunshine to serve as our statewide coordinating judge for matrimonial cases. As part of our Excellence Initiative, Judge Sunshine has begun the effort to improve the management and adjudication of matrimonial cases by examining the ways in which we can both achieve fair outcomes, but certainly reduce the financial and emotional toll of matrimonial litigation on children and reorganizing families. Thank you to Judge Sunshine for agreeing to serve in this position, and I refer all of you to the written version of the State of Our Judiciary for a complete description of the work being done on that front. One of the first and most important lessons I learned in my judicial career, I learned early on in my first assignment to family court. I learned that competent legal representation of all parties to a litigation was key to the judge's ability to render timely, well-informed decisions. And in family court, in child welfare cases particularly, effective representation is especially important. It is important to protect parental rights, expedite appropriate placement of children who need safety and permanency, speed family reunification, and enable judges to order necessary and appropriate services for children and their family members. For these reasons, and consistent with the Excellence Initiative's focus on improving the quality of adjudication, I appointed the Commission on Parental Legal Representation, consisting of family court judges, practitioners, and stakeholders, and led by Karen Peters, herself a former family court judge and, of course, retired presiding justice of the Appellate Division, 3rd Department. After conducting an extensive study, including public hearings around the state, the Commission has issued an interim report which confirms exactly what we suspected. The system is overwhelmed and underfunded. Parental representation is inadequate, and harmful consequences for children and families, and ultimately the communities we all live in, are the sad, serious byproducts of this deficient system. The Commission's recommendations, which are smart, they're informed, and they have the potential to be transformative, lead off with the creation of an Office of Family Representation in order to bring statewide organization and oversight to the delivery of parental representation services, and that this new office to be established become an arm of the already existing Office of Indigent Legal Services. We understand that the Commission recommendations transferring to the state the fiscal responsibility for representation in child welfare matters, increasing assigned counsel rates, and adopting caseload caps for attorneys in this area will not be an easy lift, but we are fully committed to seeing them through. With the Commission's guidance, we will evaluate how best to integrate the complex policy and fiscal implications associated with the proposals and develop a preliminary plan to work with our partners in government and the practicing bar to implement its recommendations and overhaul our failing parental representation system. We thank the Commission and members for their excellent work. Of course, no address on the state of our judiciary would be complete without reviewing the work of the Appellate Division of our New York State Supreme Court. Our 4 presiding justices, Acosta, Shankman, Gary, and Whalen, have been pursuing excellence in their respective departments, implementing significant changes to appellate practice across the state, notably the introduction of e-filing in all 4 departments, as well as new statewide rules harmonizing key practice issues, such as methods of perfecting an appeal, motion practice, and significantly, the deadline for perfecting appeals, which is now 6 months in all 4 departments. The presiding justices have also taken important steps to improve internal operations, and what always follows from that, improvement of the quality of justice in their courts. The first department perfected its calendar system to allow appellants to schedule and argue appeals during the same term and still receive a decision within 4 to 5 weeks. In the second department, in order to reduce its backlog, the court has increased the number of appeals on its daily calendars, has begun deciding straightforward appeals on written submissions, and on the strength of more than 70 experienced lawyers and retired judge volunteers, has established a most promising post-perfection mediation program. In the third department, Beth Gary smartly responded to an emerging challenge in her department by creating new attorney for the child contract offices to address the shrinking pool of assigned counsel upstate. And in the fourth department, Jerry Whalen has identified multiple efficiencies that have reduced the average time for disposition of an appeal by a full 2 months. Terrific work, and as well invaluable partners on the administrative board as we work together to develop and implement the policy of the New York State courts. In New York State, we have had a long commitment and proud tradition of working to ensure that every litigant has access to meaningful legal assistance where the essentials of life are at stake. Our Permanent Commission on Access to Justice, chaired by Helene Barnett, continues to lead our effort and demonstrate how the wisdom of investing public dollars in civil legal services redounds to our benefit to reduce social service costs, attract federal dollars to our state economy, and strengthen the fabric of our families and our communities. The Permanent Commission has recently undertaken to create an efficient statewide delivery system of the many and varied legal services we now have available to us, largely as a result of the Civil Legal Services funding and the generous pro bono work of New York's lawyers. By developing pilot programs, eventually to be established in every part of the state, our goal is to maximally leverage existing resources, minimize duplication, and fill gaps in service, spending every taxpayer dollar entrusted to us as if it were our own. Thank you to Helene Barnett and the Commission members for their extraordinary commitment and dedication. And complementing these efforts, our Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for Justice Initiatives, Edwina Mendelson, in addition to her important Raise the Age responsibilities, is focused on the statewide coordination of court resources to support a broad range of programs, including our court-based volunteer attorney programs, courthouse help centers, court navigators program, and a wide range of web-based and informational services that ensure access to the justice system and boost public confidence in the courts. Thank you, Judge Mendelson, to you and your staff. And one of our greatest challenges in providing access to justice to low-income litigants is centered right here in New York City in our busy, overburdened housing court. As recently as 2013, only 1% of tenants were represented in this court, where almost 240,000 new proceedings are filed each year, and up to 3,000 matters may be heard on any given day. The landscape in this court, thankfully, is changing rapidly and for the better. The completed rollout of New York City's universal access to counsel law will soon provide legal services to all litigants facing eviction in the housing court. And at the same time, we have implemented recommendations made by our Special Commission on the future of the New York City Housing Court. The judges and lawyers who sit and practice in housing court report that having counsel on both sides of a case is creating a fairer court process, leading to more equitable outcomes, increasing the level of civility and professionalism in this court, until recently known for its chaotic culture and hallway negotiations, and importantly, making housing litigation more efficient in many respects. Today, we've issued our Year 1 progress report describing the many changes we've made to facilitate early assignment of counsel, institute preliminary conference orders and staggered calendars to reduce congestion and wait times, schedule pretrial conferences and expand trial capacity, add more resources including 20 new court attorneys, and make significant physical upgrades to our facilities, including the eventual relocation of the Bronx Housing Court to larger, more suitable space, in fact, right here in this very building. Our implementation group of judges and court managers, especially Judge Marks, New York City Civil Court Administrative Judge Anthony Canataro, Housing Court Supervising Judge Jean Schneider, and Chief Clerk Aliyah Razak have done extraordinary work to promote change for timely, high-quality justice services, exactly what our Excellence Initiative is all about. As you heard earlier, our New York State courts hear millions of matters a year, and we receive tens of thousands of visitors every day. On any given day, there are numerous volatile interactions and dangerous situations that can and often do present themselves as threats to public safety. And yet, remarkably, we enjoy the distinction of being one of the safest court systems in the world. And for that distinction, we owe a great debt of gratitude to the members of our Department of Public Safety, led by Chief Michael Magliano. Last December, we opened a new Court Officer Academy in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And it was dedicated to the memories of our 3 court officers who lost their lives on 9/11. The Academy, happy to report, is a state-of-the-art facility designed to provide our officers with the latest and best training and instruction on an ongoing basis. The new Academy has enabled us to expedite a need we identified 3 years ago as part of our push to excellence: the recruitment, hiring, and training of additional court officers. In fact, just last week, we inaugurated the Academy with a class of 240 new recruits, the largest in our history, bringing the total number of officers hired since 2016 to over 830, with that number scheduled to reach 900 officers by July of this year. As an important component of the Excellence Initiative, staffing and training of court officers has been a priority because we know that no courthouse can operate properly or safely without the dedicated, professional, and highly skilled services of our uniformed court officers. We thank the leadership and the officers for their service and the professional manner in which they keep our judges, our staff, the lawyers, litigants, and members of the public safe and secure each day. No easy task. As a final matter, even to the casual observer, our judges and court staff have been working smarter and more efficiently toward our shared goal of quality, efficiency, and accessibility. But we do remain both hampered and frustrated by the limitations imposed upon us by our fragmented and long outdated organizational structure of 9 separate trial courts, 11 if you care to count the town and village courts. You have heard many times, including this morning, about the numerous challenges and institutional barriers to excellence that we face in our work, and I don't think I need to spell them out yet again. However, I do take this opportunity to acknowledge and support the view that amending our state constitution to create a 2-tiered trial court structure consisting of a Supreme Court and a district court offers us the best opportunity to achieve a modern court system that is fully capable, nimble, and properly designed to allow us to deliver efficient, affordable, high-quality justice services throughout New York State. That should be our goal, and our parallel goal should be to either remove the century-old population cap on the number of authorized Supreme Court justices or adopt an updated formula that ensures a sufficient number of JSCs commensurate with the increased volume and complexity of litigation that is presented in a modern society. Again, for all the obvious reasons, achieving greater operational efficiencies, lowering litigation costs, enhancing process and access, providing better court service, and upgrading the quality of judicial decision-making, the time has come to modernize the structure of our court system and allow us to operate at our highest and best level. The lawyers who practice in our courts are as frustrated by our outdated court structure as we are, and I want to acknowledge and thank the New York State Bar Association and its president, Michael Miller, for their strong support of our judiciary in general and court modernization in particular. In fact, the bar's president-elect, Hank Greenberg, chaired the State Bar Committee that issued a comprehensive report with excellent recommendations that closely parallel our own proposals, giving us what I hope will be a long runway at a minimum over these 2 presidencies to move the needle forward on these issues. And I will be encouraging Governor Cuomo and the state legislature to work with us to develop and give first and second passage to meaningful constitutional reforms that can be submitted to the voters for their approval on the November 2021 ballot. This is a matter of utmost concern, directly affecting our ability to meet our 21st century justice responsibilities to the people of the state of New York. In conclusion, my friends, I submit to you that the state of our judiciary is growing stronger with each passing day, and that we are doing everything in our power to make our courts here in the Bronx and across the state timely and affordable. We know that excellence has not yet been achieved throughout the system, but I do know, and I do certainly believe, that we have every good reason to be optimistic about our direction and our future. Our judges and court staff are working in new and different ways to encourage respect and trust in the judiciary and to send a clear message that this independent branch of government can be counted on to do the people's business without fear or favor and with all due process and speed. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your attention.